Hi guys, my name is Borrodante, and welcome back to Overpain. So this is probably gonna be the last episode of the Overpain month that we've been doing for the last month, just because I already want to move on to something else and not only do Overpain all the time, and also because we've shortened the queue quite a lot, we can just go back to doing Overpain in the normal once in 2 weeks. Of course I'll keep the price high for submitting the Overpain for now, because there's still quite a lot of people left, and I don't want to get back to the same giant queue that we've had before, so there's that for the Overpain month. Nothing really is gonna change, it's just that the episodes aren't gonna be as frequent as they've been for the last month. And for other news, this episode is gonna be painted with iPad Pro. This is a 12.9 inch second generation iPad Pro, the 2017 version, so this is quite a beast of hardware right here. I've been playing around with it and also working with it for over 2 weeks now, and it's really awesome. Really seems like a great gadget for work, in my case at least. So yeah, let's actually start. Today's patient is Venkat Vadlamani. Cool name. Hello, the following image is an art performed by mate Saurav Sinha. He is a genuine artist. A couple of months ago, he did an illustration of his favorite anime, Dragon Ball Super, and I suppose the art style is a mixture of manga and realism. I believe he has much more potential. I want him to improve. So I thought of submitting his art for an Overpain, with his permission. He respects you a lot, and so do I. Awesome, thank you for the respect and for your submission. Let's go ahead and try to make some good advice for Saurav. I wonder how that's pronounced. Postscriptum, the illustration presents the battle between Jiren, the right side, and well-known Goku. Right, only Jiren is on the left side, right? So yeah, let's go ahead and start. I'm probably gonna be using some references because, as you may have expected, I never watched Dragon Ball. From anime, I usually watch either something sentimental or super weird that makes you question everything, or, I don't know, cyberpunk stuff. So first I'm gonna edit this image in Affinity Photo because I need to make it a bigger resolution, and that's something that Procreate can't do. I guess that will do. So, as far as I understand, we're supposed to be drawing this guy, this version of Goku, and this version of Jiren, which is, I think, the only version of his. So, coming from this, I assume that Jiren looks just about right. Maybe I'll change some little details on the head, but apparently Goku needs to have a bit of a different hair color. We'll do that. So for now, this is it for the references. Now let's talk about what I see at the picture and what I would like to change. Well, right off the bat, I'm gonna say that I really like the picture. I think it's quite fortunate. It's really well done. I love the poses and just the general positioning of the characters in the composition. The opposing kind of storytelling, it looks pretty cool. I like the rendering almost of everything, except for maybe the way values go on the body of Jiren. Like, the contrast of convex and concave details is way too strong. It goes to complete black everywhere. It looks a bit weird, like he's not really real. So I'm gonna work a little bit on the values, paying attention to the angles of everything, and thinking through the lighting a bit more. Apparently we have the lighting going on somewhere in the middle, like this, right? So it's pointing a bit from the camera, but from the top rear from the camera, like this. Literally how this light works on me right now, not counting this light. So we're gonna be doing that, but we're gonna make sure that the values on the head, and like on both faces, follow this logic as well, because in here we have quite the flat kind of rendering. So I'm gonna be thinking about this angle while placing values on every bit of their bodies. Yeah, let's actually start, and then I'll be adding some ideas as we go along. So I decided to highlight the silhouettes to begin with by adding some air perspective around the dark edges of the figures, because in the original they really disappear. And also, while I was doing it, I realized that the background, the effects portion of the image, doesn't really support the dynamic action of the story. So I decided to add some kind of like streams of energy, not going too deep into that since I am not familiar with the lore. And yeah, I changed changed the hair color to this cyan. Not sure if that was actually a mistake in the original to have it more into the blue area, but whatever, I just looked up the references, the color was like this. So yeah, I'm gonna be playing around with these streams of energy differently throughout the whole process probably. I tend to not stick to one object in the picture and just keep on doing it all the time, because that's not a good idea to work on a painting this way. You should work on the whole picture simultaneously, switching back and forth on different objects, like work on everything together. So this is what I'm gonna be doing now. One thing that I'm thinking to change as well is probably this leg. This is again that one little thing, the tangent with the edge of the composition. Like, this leg is here just because the frame is cropped here. If the frame would be taller, the leg would be maybe lower like this. And I think this is the way it should be, because it kind of feels like this leg is here only because we need to see it, you know? It's just for us. It feels a bit wrong, like it's squished into the composition for no obvious reason. Like, Jiren is obviously attacking with his hands. There's not a lot of reasons for him to stick his knee in front. Kind of like breaks the dynamics. He's rushing forward, but the leg shows like he is actually jumping backwards, like he's actually making the movement backwards. So it's like harder to read the motion of the figure this way. Everything should be supporting the direction of the movement. So legs are going more to the back, pushing the whole body forward. That makes more sense in my head. So yeah, I'm gonna be working around. I'll start adding some details, not details, all the details we need are already here. I'm gonna be fixing values. And I'll be maybe adding some details of the faces, for instance, as details. And also I'm gonna change the color gamma of the skin color, because right now it looks really dull, like it's a wax, or not even a wax, maybe plastic. The color gradation, which is something I can't really show you here because Procreate doesn't have a constantly showing color box, it always disappears. But anyway, this color, we can see it's yellowish, and the darkest shadow is at the same tint of yellow. Am I correct? Yeah, the same color, like there's no change of hue. When we go to the shadow, it should be more red, revealing the deviation of color because there is blood underneath the skin. If we don't do that, it feels like the character doesn't have blood underneath the skin, which is, I'm pretty sure, not the part of the lore of Dragon Ball, even though I never watched it. I'm pretty sure this dude is supposed to be alive, so I'm gonna be grabbing this main color, I'm gonna make it darker, more saturated, and closer to red. Very important. So this is the new color for the shadow. In here, like something I've been talking about, too much of a strong contrast of the values on the torso of Jiren. I'm probably pronouncing the name super wrong and it's pissing off all the fans of Dragon Ball, but whatever. Anyway, the same thing with values is happening here. Like, this area is such a strong dark shadow, like everywhere in here. It's really not the place to put such strong shadows on the details of the body. This looks like there's like a huge fold inside of his body to have such a strong shadow. And I'm pretty sure this is not the case, so we're gonna be making it much lighter. It's still gonna be there, but it should be really subtle, because when there's a really light deviation of form, change of angle of the surface, the change of brightness should also be really small, otherwise it looks really weird. So something like this, maybe even lighter, we'll see. But this is the kind of stuff I'm gonna be doing right now a lot. So yeah, let's actually start and go through most of the lighting on the characters and we'll see what's gonna happen next. Alright, so doing some progress here. Looking kinda cool, although I've been struggling a bit with the Procreate brushes that I have at the moment. They're not exactly aimed for detailed, smooth rendering that one should better use when overpainting any kind of anime. But one thing I wanted to talk about is the foreshortening of this hand right here. Now, this is one of those situations where generally it makes sense for the hand to have this kind of angle to the camera, so it will appear really short. But something is wrong with this arm right here right now. It looks like it's just really short, or something's just not right. When you foreshorten any kind of cylindrical shape, which is what hand is, we need to make sure that we think of the hand as of cylinder. So when we're rotating it like this, it should be appearing this way, right? And to make sure it appears like this, we need to make sure that all the details on the hand follow this curve, really strong curve. And here we have very flat curve, almost just a line like this, but slightly curved. So the same thing we should be doing here. This blue band on the hand, it has a really flat and wrong angle for the situation. So what we need to do is to make sure we make it like this. A much stronger curve will make it look like it's an actual rotated cylinder, to the point where it makes sense that the arm is so short in the image because it's foreshortened. So let's go ahead and do that now. I think the band should also be noticeably shorter itself due to the angle of rotation, comparing to the other arm right here. Also, I'm making this arm darker overall in this area, just because it's really rotated away from the light source that is in front of the camera. Of course, when we have such a strong angle, it's gonna be catching a lot less light. So right now I'm really making sure that we kind of can see this plane of the hand and this one as well a little bit, because the angle is so strong that we kind of can see how the curvature actually goes over like this. And we kind of can see, especially on the wrinkles of that band, it's gonna appear this way. There we go, I think it looks much better now. Feels like it's actually at that angle. And here we have quite an unusual spot of light for some reason. Probably because there was a lot of struggle with how to render the geometry of the elbow at this angle and this position when the light is not even supposed to be there. So we just go ahead and choose the convenient light position for this particular body part, not considering the overall lighting of the scene. But really, if you don't do it and just go ahead and shade the body part the way it's supposed to be, especially when it's like an inconvenient lighting, in many cases the body part is just supposed to be dark and pretty flat. Like in this scenario, we're just shading it really softly and really dark, so it's not even gonna show up all that much, and that's fine. And what's interesting, I think on this arm the curvature should be less strong. It feels like in the original it's just always the same angle that the author is used to, so it's always like the same curve no matter what angle of the arm is. So this is the kind of stuff you really should be paying attention to get the good angles of the body parts and everything. So yeah, for the rest of the picture, I did quite a lot of changes on the values of Jiren. So this way we have a much more of a subtle contrast on everything, but it's much more consistent. And we can read really well the shape of all the muscles that are going on, you know, as they are facing the light source properly, with really subtle changes of brightness everywhere. To learn exactly how to make these changes, it's good to do some studies from photos of different people, maybe actual fighters actually, and try and repeat the colors and lights on their muscles to see how actually subtle and precise those changes of brightness are all over the body and pretty much everywhere. This is about rendering anything at all, and it's always a good idea to learn those subtle nuances from photographs or from the actual studies from reality when you actually go and paint a real person standing in front of you or something like that. So yeah, we're almost done. I'm gonna work a little bit more on the maybe clothing areas, the ones that I haven't touched yet, to fix the values a bit. Maybe add some more changes on the background, and that'll be it. So let's go ahead and finish this. Okay, done. So here we go. What did I add in the end? Bunch of highlights, some red color to the skin right here, did some changes on the hair values and on the bottom parts of the clothing as well, and added a bunch of lines around the background. And also I replaced all the dots on the background. You can see these just separate dots everywhere. I replaced them with short lines. It's always a good idea to go with some kind of lines when your picture is generally dynamic. Like in here we have a fight, and lines go much better with that. That's why you usually see these, you know, lines that became like a parody thing. When someone is parodying anime, there's always like a lot of lines in the background, because lines have the message of the dynamics. Line means something is moving in a certain direction, and dot means that something is static, it's standing in one place. So whenever you have a dynamic picture, always try to make your background in a way that you will have a lot of lines that will be showing the direction, instead of just dots that are just gonna be standing there still and that's it. Yeah, I also made the orange kimono color right here a bit more saturated with an overlay mode layer, as well as I used the separate layer to colorize the hair into the new color. Also, yeah, I changed the eyeballs to more of an anime style from this to this. Both characters have different eyes now. These eyes are much closer to what they look like in anime. And I think like we're not at that crazy level of realistic style here, so I think it kind of works pretty well with these actual strongly stylized eyes. Generally, I personally don't find any problems with rendering anime with all the anime proportions in fully realistic light and materials, because I mean, we have anime action figures, right? They have totally anime proportions, and they're actual action figures in reality, which means they have the realistic lighting on them. It looks fine, right? It's all about the way you work with those details, how exactly you render them to make them look right. I'm not saying I did that like a perfect job here. I'm not that good at rendering anime. I'm not good at all at drawing anime as well. I don't really know that style all that much. I haven't practiced it. But generally, I think it's not a disaster, or at least the whole idea of rendering anime realistically is not wrong in its concept. I think it's a good thing to do. We have a lot of renderings like this from Ilya Kuvshinov, for instance, one of the most famous anime artists that use like really realistic rendering, and a whole bunch of other ones, I suppose. So yeah, overall, as you can see, the main changes I did is replacing really strong values with something a lot more subtle, and it immediately just starts looking a lot more realistic when you pay a much closer attention to subtle changes of angles and not just push crazy contrast of light and shadow. That's like the main difference between realistic rendering and not so realistic rendering. So yeah, this is it. Hope this was helpful. Thank you, Venkat, for your submission made by Saurav. If you want to submit your own artwork for Overpain, the link to my Patreon page is in the end of this video. It's still gonna take some time for me to get to your artwork through the whole queue. If you really want to, you can submit. And I thank you for watching if you did. I guess you did if you're here. Leave a like and subscribe. Tell a friend. Pay attention to the subtle angles. Do whatever you want. And I will see you in the next one. Bye! Okay, now I have to watch at least one episode of this stuff, because these guys look epic to say the least.